best.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel here. It's Lavender here, and today I'm doing another true crime case. Today I am doing the true crime case of the unsolved disappearances and the suspected murder of Moses Lall and Lila Buerattan. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. This case was featured in a number of TV and media and TV. This case was featured in the vintage TV show called Unsolved Mysteries, and it was also, I think, featured in Investigation Discovery's show Disappeared, if I'm correct. The reason why I'm doing this case is because, again, I don't know how the fuck this case has not been solved. Because it should have been solved. They haven't found their bodies or whatever, but it's clear that they were murdered, you know? Think about this, okay? How do you leave over almost $1 million worth of expensive birds behind and leave them to starve and die? That just doesn't make any sense. This is clearly a murder, so I don't know why this hasn't been solved. You don't need the bodies to solve a crime. It's obvious who did it, but let's get started into this case. So yeah. So here is the background of this case, this true crime case. So here we go. So 31-year-old Moses Lall and 35-year-old Lydia were Guyanese natives raising exotic, expensive birds like parrots and stuff on a farm in Florida. In 1993, federal restrictions on importing birds caused them to instead focus on breeding birds because if there's like an endangered bird population in a certain country, they're going to want to save those birds. So that's why they're no longer letting people, import birds from other countries. So they decided to just breed birds, in Florida on the farm that they were at. So yeah. And Lita's job was feeding and taking care of the birds. She was in charge of, again, caring and feeding for the birds. Moses was in charge of the business as a whole operation. And on June 4th, 1994, Daryl crew arrived there with their usual food delivery for the birds and found it deserted and no one was there to pick up the food or whatever. No one came to meet him, and the hundreds of exotic birds present, valued at almost $1 million. It was valued at $700,000 worth of exotic birds were there on the farm. They were starving and screaming for food. He dropped out the food, and later he would decide to come back to see if the food was still there. And again, the food was not touched, and no one was still there. And the food wasn't touched, and it had dust on it. It had not moved from where he put it, where he set it at. He notified the authorities about the owner's absence, and still even after the fact that, the owners disappeared and they were missing, nobody decided to help the birds at all. The entire time. The whole entire time, for over 10 days, no one helped the birds. This is what pisses me off, okay? So if someone suddenly goes missing for no reason, which is unusual, right? Very suspicious, right? No one decided to help the birds at all. Like, people are, like, such procrastinators. Like, what the fuck? That's why I can't stand procrastinators. Anyways, so no one helped the birds the entire time for over 10 days, and later the birds were rescued, and they tried to claim it was animal cruelty, but, like, it wasn't animal cruelty. It was the fucking procrastination and neglect of the people who should have responded sooner. Like, how do you have, like, people disappearing under suspicious circumstances, and yet there's a bunch of birds, and you're not even doing anything to help the birds? You're just leaving them the whole entire time and procrastinating. What the fuck? They kept claiming it was animal cruelty, and it wasn't, because the reality is that Moses and Lydia disappeared before all the birds went into such bad health. So technically, it's not animal cruelty, it's cruelty on the part of the people who found the birds. Because they knew that the owners disappeared, but they didn't even check on the birds. They didn't even give a fuck about the birds. Talk about fucking procrastination, right? So 2 days later, on June 7th, Moses and Lydia's Guyanese hired hand, Harry Gerblin, was discovered by a state trooper in Richard Hills, Georgia, changing the tires on Moses' vehicle. When asked for identification, he gave the troopers Moses' driver's license without any indication of foul play. The state trooper let him go and sent him on his way. 10 days after they vanished, finally, the police and animal control rushed to their farm to rescue and save all the starving birds that were in such bad health from starvation and dehydration. Due to nobody thinking at the birds the entire time that all the owners were missing under suspicious circumstances, and all the procrastinating that the police did and all that, 40 plus birds, expensive birds, lost their lives that day due to nobody taking any action, knowing that the owners went missing under suspicious circumstances. They just didn't care about the animals. They just are procrastinating like a motherfucker. In the meantime, the authorities wondered what had happened to Moses and Lydia. Roland was from Africa and was the brother of one of Moses' business partners. Rumor had it that Moses had decided to expand the business to include exotic reptiles and had borrowed money from sinister underworld figures to finance it. Perhaps they had run out of money and were abducted at gunpoint, who knows. 2 days after the birds were discovered, the authorities tracked Roland to New York, where he had been since before the disappearance. He also told them that he had spoken to Hardy on either June 4th or 5th of June. Hardy claimed the two men in a white van had taken Moses, Lydia, and several birds at gunpoint along with the reptiles. Harry had not been found since. However, police don't know if he is running from an abduction or if he was in on it and had a hand in it. They don't know. At case time, the police were not considering Harry Goblin a suspect, but wanted to question him on whether he knew about the disappearances of employers. According to Harry, Moses and Lydia were abducted by unknown individuals in a white van. Some believe that the two were abducted because of Moses' shady business dealings, and others believe that he was abducted because they were trying to steal the expensive bird collection. Which would be weird because, like, there were so many birds left behind. Like, almost $1 million worth of birds were left behind and made to starve to death. So this kind of makes me think that it maybe have been an employee that they knew. Because why would they not take all the birds? You know what I'm talking about? So, to this day, this case remains unsolved. To this day, investigators now believe that Harry Goblin was responsible for Moses' and Leah's disappearance at the time in the 90s. Moses' mother claims that in October of 1993, Goblin stole $29,000 from Moses and fled in one of their white vans. When he was found in New York, Moses agreed to drop theft charges against him and let him return to his job. Interestingly, when Goblin was pulled over in Georgia after the disappearances, a videotape about changing his identity was found in the van, along with several rare birds and tortoises in the back of the van. In March 2011, authorities tracked Harry Goblin to Jersey City, New Jersey. He was living under the alias Roy Smith. However, when detectives arrived at his workplace to arrest him, he had fled. Goblin is now believed to be in the Philadelphia area. I have no idea where he is now. It's a big mystery where he is now, but I think that he did it because, like, if he didn't do it, why were all the birds still there? Like, why would they not take all the birds? You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's just too suspicious, you know? I think he did it. So, if you guys like this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Bye guys, see you next video.